And we welcome you now to the Lloyd Noble Center here in Oklahoma. A hot shooting start between Kansas and the Sooners, although number 2 a moment ago just opened up a 10-point lead. If you're just joining us, Bob Wischusen alongside Fran Fraschilla. Glad you can spend part of your weekend with us. And it's a Kansas team that only has losses to Texas and Kansas State on their ledger. And obviously, it's a team right now, Fran Fraschilla. It seems like most in college basketball would say there are 5 1 seeds. 2 of them are in this conference. You can only have 4 come Selection Sunday, and Kansas is a team that clearly is still playing to try to become one of those top 4 teams.
Well, I think you're right, Bob. And the thing that I think differentiates Kansas from the other top 4 or 5 teams is I think they have the best bench of any of these top teams, because they've withstood a lot of injuries this year, some suspensions, and you look down Bill Self's lineup, and he's got 11 or 12 guys that have really helped them this year.
All right, Fran Fraschilla, you might not be aware, he is a Renaissance man. He also plays meteorologist at times. I think he did an internship at the National Weather Center, right, to put all of this together, Fran's February forecast?
Well, Joe Lunardi's the doctor of bracketology, and I've got my meteorology degree, but sunny for 5 teams. Kansas State wins today against Missouri at home. I think 5 teams are solid. These 3 teams, Baylor, Colorado, Nebraska, it's mostly cloudy right now. One of these teams is trying to ride a high-pressure system into a possible NCAA bid, and Nebraska did not help themselves today. It was a little stormy up in Ames, Iowa, as they lost to Iowa State, but certainly it's been a good year in the Big 12. And that's the weather, Bob, in Big 12 country. Now here's a look at the local forecast in your area.
Very nice. I can see you in Al Roker's cutout taking over in the plaza.
You know, you gotta stay multi-talented. You never know.
As I said, you're a Renaissance man. I'm learning more and more. I'll tell you, you could come to places like Austin, Norman, or Lawrence and run for office. You hang out with Fran Fraschilla in Big 12 country, it's like hanging out with the mayor, shaking hands and kissing babies.
Well, one thing you've learned this year about the Big 12 is the weather is a factor. You talk about Oklahoma. If you don't like the weather in Oklahoma, wait a minute, and it'll change.
Markieff Morris fades away. Soft touch in the lane for Markieff Morris.
You know, when Bill Self first got the Twins, I think everybody will agree they're hard to tell apart. But I have to tell you, their games are very similar. Even though Markieff has got better rebounding numbers and his younger brother better scoring numbers, they have the same type of versatility. Don't you think they mixed up their jerseys on occasion in practice?
I would. I'm sure Markieff would like that. That means he'll probably be able to take some more shots. Shot clock down to 5. Does Newell realize it? Shot clock at 2. They get it to the post. Washington a turnaround. And a good job by C.J. Washington to beat the 35-second timer.
That's a young man from Stringtown, Oklahoma, southeast part of the state. JUCO transfer from a town of about 400.
Mario Little posting up Neal, fades away, and that is a professional-looking shot from Mario Little.
Well, Mario Little is another one of those guys who's checked his ego at the door. The former JUCO All-American Player of the Year. He redshirted a year ago. But he's been a very valuable member of the rotation. He's an undersized 4-man.
Newell in traffic, gets tied up. A foul was called, an offensive foul. Jeff Capel is very upset. On the baseline, Paul Jansen had signaled a held ball, but Terry Oglesby from the near sideline instead called an offensive foul.
Well, Terry Oglesby is going to say that there was a foul first before the jump ball, and you could see he got it right. So both officials were on top of the play. Terry Oglesby had the charge first, and he came from his middle position to make that call.
So Calvin Newell, the freshman, called for the foul. Primarily in the backcourt for Oklahoma and Jeff Capel. Carl Blair, the sophomore, the transfer from New Orleans. Stephen Pledger, a sophomore. Newell's a freshman. All around the only senior on the team in Cade Davis. So not a lot of experience handling the basketball for Jeff Capel. Fade away. And it's good again. This time Marcus Morris brings another one up, and this is the largest lead for Kansas, up to 12. Fitzgerald answers.
That's nice. That's what Andrew Fitzgerald can do. He doesn't really elevate over you in the post, Bob. He's an up and under guy, but he can play away from the basket. Remember, he had 16 a year ago as a freshman at Allen Fieldhouse. There's that zone again. Good ball movement by Kansas.
Reed split it. Little uses the pump fake, and he'll go to the free throw line.
I want to give you some refereeing tidbits here now, Bob. Now take a look on the drive. I want you to watch this now. On the drive by Newell. Now freeze it right there. You got a middle official right here and the lead official under. Terry Oglesby has the foul first. He'll call the foul because he can see the charge. And then Paul Jansen had the jump ball, but the foul preceded the held ball. So that was a good piece of officiating right there.
I'm not sure that Jeff Capel would have broken down the tape the same way.
I went to the Big 12 officiating camp last summer, and I got to tell you, I came away with a newfound appreciation for what these guys do and how they position themselves on the floor and how they work together as a team. They're a lot better than I thought they were when I was coaching.
Fitzgerald lost it on the way up, but a foul call. Same situation, by the way. Oglesby called the foul from the near sideline. On the baseline, Paul Jansen, who was about 5 feet away from the foul being called, didn't call it. And Bill Self, with his arms outstretched, looked at Paul Jansen, pointed to Terry Oglesby, says, how's the guy on the other side of the floor make that call? You're right there.
Well, one of the things that happens between officials is they make eye contact. So you very rarely see one official make a call and the other one overrule him.
Foul called on Reed, and college basketball continues on ESPN tomorrow afternoon. A big one in the Big Ten between Purdue and Michigan State. And if Michigan State can get that win, that would further solidify their tournament hopes. Judgment Week presented by the movie Battle Los Angeles on ESPN tomorrow at 1 Eastern. That game available online at ESPN3.com and on your phone.
Well, you saw a lot of Big Ten basketball this year, and if Purdue ends up with the #2 seed, I think you'll agree that Matt Painter's already done a phenomenal coaching job with that team.
Yeah, without Robbie Hummel, for that team to be a significant Final Four threat says a lot. Also about E'Twaun Moore and Jawan Johnson. Another jumper goes down for Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris is now 3 for 4. Markieff Morris is 3 for 3. They are doing a lot of damage in the paint.
The reason they get great shots, Bob, is because they don't have ball stickers. They have ball movers. The ball very rarely sticks to your hands if you play on this Kansas team.
Abe Davis with an air ball. Nice job by Fitzgerald to get back and intercept the entry.
Right now, if you're Oklahoma, you got to maximize every possession. Make sure you get good shots.
Davis with a back tap. Nice spin. Wide open is Pledger. Hey, he hits the 3. Timeout called by Bill Self. We'll step aside. A little noise from the Sooners here at the Lloyd Noble Center. Down by double figures, but they've cut it to 7.
Mary compared deals for this hotel at kayak.com. She saved so much, she booked Magnus for the whole afternoon. Sarah didn't use kayak.com. She has no idea she overpaid for exactly the same room. Is ignorance bliss? No. Magnus is bliss. Compare hundreds of travel sites at once. Kayak. Search one and done.
Welcome back to ESPN College Basketball, presented by 5 Hour Energy, part of Judgment Week, presented by Battle Los Angeles. Bob Wischusen and Fran Fraschilla here in Norman. And you would think an overmatched Sooners team, once they got down by double figures, might start to go quietly, but Jeff Capel's group with a bit of an answer. Here's Reed from the corner. And there's an answer from the Jayhawks again as Tyrell Reed hits a triple.
Every time Oklahoma has changed their defense, they've gone to man, 2-3 zone, that time 1-3-1. Kansas has an answer, and primarily because of great ball movement.
Fitzgerald spins underneath, has it stripped away by Morningstar. Brady Morningstar is fouled on the drive. A hold called against Pledger. And we will step aside for just a moment. Kansas by 10 is number 2, trying to get a 1 seed.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5 Hour Energy, the no-wait, no-hassle way to a great morning.
Baba Shoes and Fran Fraschilla back here in Norman. A battle in the Big 12 between Kansas and Oklahoma. And there is a pretty good bubble in terms of Big 12 teams, Coach.
Well, you know, I think 5 right now are looking pretty good. And in this league, it's not uncommon to put 6 teams in the tournament. These 3 teams still on the bubble. Take a look at the RPI wins versus top 50 teams. One team has 4 wins. And we'll let you know what we think of those 3 teams when we get a break.
Yeah, it's a blind resume, so we'll fill in those logos a little bit later on. A good debate, though. Fadeaway by Markieff Morris. The Morris twins have been very efficient so far.
Anytime the officials have said something about either twin this year, they'll come over to Bill Self and say, hey, tell the twins to knock it off. And the point is, they're so similar in terms of how they play. Markieff's every bit as skilled as Marcus.
Shot clock down to 10. Clark rises up. The rebound to Elijah Johnson, who got a 2nd consecutive start in place of Tyshawn Taylor, suspended for a violation of team rules.
And it's a tough matchup. They're going to have to double team, which they did right there. Watch Blair. He'll come again.
Skip past the Morning Star, and on the opposite side, it's Markieff. An offensive rebound and a miss inside. The foul call, though, is Marcus Morris will go to the free throw line. And let's reveal our logos and see, out of these 3, if one of the 3 has the best chance, who would it be?
Well, it might be the team with 4 wins against the top 50. And there you see it's the Colorado Buffaloes. All 3 of these teams, we said it's mostly cloudy, but they certainly can, each of them, play their way into contention for a bid. They not only have 2 games left in the regular season, but I always look at the postseason tournament as like the bonus question. You know, you get a couple wins, maybe 3, get to the finals, and put yourself all of a sudden in position to get a bid. Not going to be easy, but certainly all 3 of those teams have some redeeming qualities about them.
Marcus Morris already in double figures for the 18th game in a row.
Yeah, the problem right now for Oklahoma is they cannot outscore this Kansas team. It's hard to make up this kind of deficit.
Blair, tough shot, in and out. And Markieff Morris with the rebound. Feeds his brother.
And if you're Jeff Capel right now, you don't even really want to send anybody to the offensive glass because the Twins do such a good job of cleaning up rebounds. You don't want to be susceptible to getting beat in transition.
Alley-oop floats out of bounds.
That was a set play for a lob, but Marcus Morris didn't realize that Elijah Johnson got hung up on the back screen. He just threw the ball.
Thomas Robinson back on as Markieff Morris goes to the Kansas bench.
Bill Self has always been a 9-man rotation guy. 5 perimeter players, 4 inside players.
That jumper goes down for Andrew Fitzgerald.
Well, that's what Andrew Fitzgerald can really do well. Face up. This is a guy that's lost 50 pounds since he arrived on campus. He's gotten himself into great shape, and he's had to because he plays a lot of minutes for this young team with not a lot of depth.
Morning Star with the drive, and he knocks it down. Boy, the patience and the ball movement of Kansas has been so impressive here in the first half.
Brady Morningstar actually wanted to make that play as a pass, but the passing lanes were covered. He was able to get right to the rim.
Kansas is shooting 75% from the field here in the first half. And here's Marcus Morris improving the shooting percentage, and a timeout called by Jeff Capel. Largest lead for the Jayhawks. It's up to 15.
Well, we mentioned Bob and talking to Bill Self last night and today. Take a look now at this ball movement. The ball does not stick to any one player like Velcro. They move the basketball. Watch it go side to side. And as Bill Self told us, they're not a great passing team. They're a great ball movement team. Brady Morningstar, who's averaging, believe it or not, almost 8 assists for every turnover in the Big 12, can score when he needs to. Last week against Colorado, he had 16 points in the first half. Second half, he didn't score because he's not concerned about his own numbers.
And Brady Morningstar has 4 assists to 1 turnover so far in this game. And you're right, believe it or not, in Big 12 play, that hurts his ratio.
Yeah, get him
at
out.
4-to-1.
Get him out.
7.4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in conference play is just ridiculous. He's number 1 in the conference overall at 3-to-1. That's if you include the entire out-of-conference schedule as well. But 7.5-to-1 is off the charts.
He's actually the oldest player in the Big 12 at 25 because he spent a year in prep school and a year redshirting as well.
Fitzgerald fades away.
That's
He's got
nice.
another.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's good basketball right there.
'21st game in double figures now for Andrew Fitzgerald. Robinson, reverse.
Well, Fitzgerald didn't take away the angle on the baseline, and Robinson was able to read it, look over his inside shoulder, and spin baseline.
17 of 22 from the field here in the first half for Kansas. They are on a 50-point pace here in the first half. Deep 3 on the way. Pledger too strong. The back tap, though, keeps it alive, but a foul call. That'll go against Calvin Newell.
Well, this is a very deep Kansas team. Everybody knows about the Morris twins, but Thomas Robinson, the sophomore from Washington, D.C., he'll hurt you as well inside.
Bram Whiteside in the studio. Coming up on the UPS halftime report, the Jimmer fantastic again as BYU makes a statement in San Diego. As for the Pac-10, that title on the line in the regular season between UCLA and Arizona, a couple of heavyweights, and Reeves Nelson off to a fantastic start for the Bruins. 5 for 6 start, 13 points, and they lead Arizona 33-28, 4+ to go there. Texas is rolling Colorado in Boulder 48-33, and Kentucky leads Florida with the Gators looking for an SEC regular season crown. Back to Norman.
Well, Bram, you mentioned Texas rolling against Colorado. So far here in the first half, Kansas has rolled against Jeff Capel's team. So 2 teams in the Big 12 that could both end up being 1 seeds playing very much like it here on the last Saturday in February.
Well, it's a great point. We know there's 5 or 6 quality teams. Of course, San Diego State lost to BYU today. So much left in the regular season and the conference tournaments and determining those #1 seeds. Remember, Duke's still got to go to Va Tech tonight and Virginia Tech and North Carolina next Saturday. And Pittsburgh, a team that looks like a #1 seed, will go tomorrow to Louisville.
Morningstar called for his first.
Now, I mentioned earlier, Bob, about the dismissal of a couple young men, Tiny Gallen, Tommy Mason Griffin, 2 McDonald's All-Americans. Jeff Capel basically has had to start over after the Blake Griffin era. And the one thing you'll say about this particular Sooner team this year is they've played very, very hard. Right now, they just don't have the offensive firepower that some of his early Sooner teams had.
Fitzgerald tied up by Selby. Jump ball. It stays with Oklahoma. There's help on the way, though, next year for Oklahoma.
Well, they got Romero Osby, a transfer from Mississippi State, who's sitting on the Sooner bench right now, who's arguably their best player at this moment. A junior college center coming from Hutchinson, Kansas. Plays for Steve Eck, who does a great job there.
A little hope from Calvin Newell as well. He's shooting under 30% from 3, but that time he connects. All moot unless Oklahoma can start getting some stops, though. Kansas on an over 50-point pace here in the first half.
Now, there's that 1-3-1 again. Didn't give Kansas too much trouble first time they got into it.
Morningstar, a wide open look.
Right now, if you're Jeff Capel, if you can just get it to 10 or so into the half, you'll feel a little bit better about your team, but they've got to figure out a way to slow Kansas down on the offensive end. That's something a lot of teams have tried to do this year unsuccessfully.
Shot clock down to 8. Newell tries a 3. That's off the heel. The long rebound, though, out to Pledger. And he'll back it back out. Fresh shot clock for the Sooners.
Hard to believe Jeff Capel is 9 years a head coach now and is still only 36 years old. Still one of the youngest coaches in the country.
Foul called on Mario Little, and tomorrow night ESPN delivers 2 star-powered Eastern Conference foes. Carmelo, Amari, and the Knicks looking to bounce back from a dreadful loss last night to Cleveland on the road. And what do they get next? A matchup with LeBron and the Heat in Miami, NBA Sunday. Tomorrow night at 8 Eastern, also available online at ESPN3.com. And slipping through traffic is Calvin Newell.
And if you're Kansas right now, the differentiation on that shot clock and game clock is about 4 seconds, and you want to treat this like it's the last shot of the half. And if you're Oklahoma, you've got to make sure you keep the Twins off the offensive glass.
About a 4-second differential between the shot clock and the game clock. Shot clock down to 7. Reed from the corner, out to Selby. In and out. Over the back goes Marcus Morris. So with 6.7 seconds to go with the foul on Morris, a chance now for Oklahoma to get it, as you said, to 10 or maybe even 9 before halftime.
That's exactly right. 7 seconds right now, or thereabouts, 6.7. See if you can get into the lane, get to the rim, and maybe get a kick out for a 3.
Calvin Newell push it.
He's got to get to the rim. That's not what they need.
3 from midcourt. No good. So it's a 12-point lead at halftime for Kansas, and you know you shot the ball well when there are 2 players in your lineup shooting 50% from the field, and they've got the worst shooting percentages for your team. Elijah Johnson and Brady Morningstar both shot 50% from the field in the first half. They brought up the rear, and Kansas leads by 12. Now it's Bram Weinstein with the UPS halftime report. Welcome back to ESPN College Basketball, presented by 5 Hour Energy. All a part of Judgment Week, presented by the movie Battle Los Angeles. Set for the start of the second half between Kansas and Oklahoma. And a little life breathed back into the game by the Sooners before halftime, cutting the lead to 12. Bob Wischusen alongside Fran Fraschilla. As we start the second half, Jeff Capel seemed frustrated. Obviously, Kansas, though, created a lot of the frustration, more so than his team maybe not playing well at times defensively. KU shot the lights out in the first half, and everyone touches the ball.
Well, that's the beauty of this team. It doesn't matter whether you were a high school All-American or you're just happy to be on the roster and getting minutes. They play with a collective low ego. It doesn't matter who gets shots as long as the ball moves. Now, we've sped this up a little bit because we want to show you as much as we can of how good that ball movement has been. But this is very typical of Kansas, and it's a big reason, Bob, why they shoot 52% on the season.
And the Morris twins, again, very efficient in the first half.
Great word, and that's a great way to put it. They don't do anything they're not capable of doing. The problem for Jeff Capel is they're capable of doing a lot.
Normally, when you shoot 48% from the field at home, you don't find yourself down by double figures. And that's what Oklahoma did in the first half. They were 13 of 27. The problem, Kansas was 17 of 24, including 6 of 11 from three-point land. So 71% from the field and 55% behind the arc.
Now, this is a really good high-low team. They go inside early. They don't get it done, but they love to get the ball inside.
Shot clock at 10. Cade Davis gives it up to Fitzgerald, who regathers with the shot clock down to 5 and finds Davis cutting, and it's a 10-point game.
Yeah, if you're Bill Self right now, you're not happy with the focus of your team's defense for much of that 35-second clock.
Foul called on Fitzgerald, battling with Marcus Morris. That's the second on Andrew Fitzgerald, and he is the only low post option consistently that Jeff Capel has. So he cannot get in foul trouble. It's really not an option if they're going to have a chance to win the game.
Well, you're exactly right. I expect Oklahoma to continue to mix in some zone defense for just that reason, to try to protect him inside.
The last 10 games for Oklahoma, their starters have averaged 34 minutes a game per guy.
No, and that's exactly the reason why I think they're on a 6-game losing streak after winning 4 in a row, because they don't have the depth and these guys are wearing down.
Marcus Morris hits another.
It's not exactly a shooting drill for Kansas, but they are getting great shots.
Fitzgerald spins into the double team, but a foul called on a wraparound, I believe, on Markieff Morris.
Now, when you talk about Kansas, Bob, and you compare them to the elite teams in college basketball, the one thing that comes to mind, that Bill Self will tell you, is they don't always stay focused, particularly on the defensive end. And the Twins have a tendency to get soft inside.
Davis gets shut down. Takeaway by Markieff Morris. Here comes Marcus.
Nice post feed.
Markieff lost it, found it again, scores plus the foul. The regather by Markieff Morris after he fumbled the entry at first.
Well, and it started with a terrific post feed by Elijah Johnson right to the corner of the backboard. Take a look. Now, good help defense by Cade Davis, and then you just see the agility of Morris able to get that ball up on the glass.
Cade Davis called for a second. All right, it's Kansas and Texas. Then Pittsburgh, obviously. Ohio State, an offensive rebound. It's a 4-point trip for Marcus Morris. You toss in Duke. Those are the 5 teams that everyone believes the 4-1 seeds will most likely come
That's
from.
right.
Where in your mind does Kansas fit in that quintet? How good are they?
I think they're the deepest and offensively the most talented, although Ohio State has a lot of firepower as well. But I think they're the deepest team. They're certainly the situation is who's going to finish the season. A technical foul.
Jeff Capel gets teed up behind the play after the shot of Tyler Neal was blocked in the corner. And he's saying that Tyler Neal was hit on the elbow.
Well, Jeff Capel had a pretty good view. Let's take a look. Well, he looks like he has a pretty good argument right there. Now, if you hit him in the hand, the hand's supposed to be part of the ball, but Jeff Capel is saying he got him on the elbow. I don't know if the official thought he missed a call or not. But I always like an official that when they do miss a call, they'll let the coach give you a little bit of back talk. Now, they might have gotten a technical from Jeff Capel because he left the coach's box out on the court.
Yeah, he was about 5 feet out on the floor.
And that would be legitimate. Let's take a look now.
That's a foul.
That's a foul.
He's right.
He's absolutely right.
So in the end, it ends up being about a 5-point swing, arguably, because the 2 free throws at one end end up being shot by Tyrell Reed, and he's thinking his player should have gotten 3 free throws at the other end.
Well, and what we talked about today with Jeff Capel is when you have this young a team, you have no margin for error.
Blocking foul called on Tyler Neal.
Yeah. Let's see if Neal slid over, but right now Jeff Capel's got no margin for error, so when an official misses a call where you're going to shoot 3, let's take a look. Now, as long as his feet are set before, let's look at it real time. That is a close call. It looked like he slid under, but again, it gets back to when you have a team that's 12 and 15, you need everything to go your way in order to beat a team like Kansas.
It's interesting, too, the way you put it, that now Jeff Capel, having already been teed up, has no margin for error. It's like a football coach being out of challenges.
Yeah, no,
you've
exactly
thrown the flag, you've had your say, it didn't work out, and now if you mouth off again, you're watching the rest of the game and listening to us call it back in the locker room.
I'm gonna assume the official knows he missed the call. And it's not going to change how he officiates the rest of the game, but they may give Jeff Capel a little more leeway.
Davis lost his balance, taken away by Morningstar. Already Kansas's largest lead. Looking for more. And unable to put it home was Elijah Johnson, but he'll go to the free throw line.
What you like about Kansas right now is they're like piranhas in a fish tank. They're taking advantage of Oklahoma mistakes. They're getting out and running. And as well as they shot the ball in the first half, they're actually getting out in transition more this half. Good look ahead by Brady Morningstar.
Tyler Neal called for his third, so he'll head to the bench. C.J. Washington will come back on for Oklahoma. And college basketball continues tonight. One of those teams most likely in the running for a 1 seed. It's Duke, the #1 team in the land, taking on Virginia Tech. Saturday primetime presented by DirecTV. Part of Judgment Week presented by the movie Battle Los Angeles tonight here on ESPN at 9 Eastern. That game also available online at ESPN3.com and on your phone.
You know, you watch Brady Morningstar, Bob. He's mastered 2 of the most unselfish plays in basketball. He's a ball swinger from side to side. He's also great at looking up in transition. He gives the ball up early. A lot of guards hold on to the ball until their teammate is no longer open.
Fitzgerald held by Markieff Morris. Third on Markieff Morris. Still in the midst of an 11-0 run for Kansas that has opened up the 21-point lead. Markieff will sit down as Thomas Robinson comes back on. Quick trigger off the inbound. Connecting is Cameron Clark, a good-looking freshman for Oklahoma.
Well, Cameron Clark averaged 16 points a game when Oklahoma had that 4-game Big 12 win streak. Has struggled lately. He's one of those guys that plays a lot of minutes. Young man from Sherman, Texas, top 50 recruit.
Spinning, coming up short, Marcus Morris. Robinson, though, keeps it alive. And there's Marcus Morris with a follow. A lot of KU fans here in Norman. They made the drive, and they are being heard now at the Lloyd Noble Center.
Well, Thomas Robinson got that ball on the rim, and Marquise Morris cleaned it up. It's very difficult for Oklahoma to keep Kansas off the backboards because of the mobility of the Robinson and Marcus Morris. Take a look. Watch the drive by Marcus. He looks like he's out of the play right now. Robinson gets it on the rim. And then here comes Marcus Morris back into your picture.
Officials timeout as Cameron Clark was shaken up, so he's now on the bench. Selby back on as well for Kansas. Blair, nice find. Davis goes backdoor plus the foul.
Okay, Davis has always been a player that moves well without the ball. Credit Carl Blair Jr., the transfer from New Orleans, with a good look. And this is where Kansas has a tendency. You see the back screen. Brady Morningstar gets hung up on the back screen. Kansas has a tendency to lose its focus at times on the defensive end, particularly in Big 12 play.
Three-point play for Cade Davis, the only senior on this Oklahoma team. Tough senior year when at one point you were playing with the Griffins in the Elite Eight a couple of years ago, and you have seen, as you talked about, as Selby can't hit, some of the talent come and go that Oklahoma has had to deal with over the last 2 seasons.
Well, you're right. And in the last 2 years, he's had to be the go-to guy, Cade Davis.
Blair called for the foul, and Thomas Robinson shaken up on that last play. Back with that update in a moment.
You're going to get us out.
Yeah, again.
Oh, Billy.
Ooh. Digger, let's go a little bit more to the right.
I got this. Still world champion, Bob Knight.
On the line. You boys better work on your game.
Don't you hate it when she's right? To learn more, go to ontheline.com because your health is on the line.
It's time for a phone to save us from our phones. New Windows Phone. Now for a limited time, get a Samsung Focus for $99.99 at AT&T.
Hey there, can I get a light beer? Smiley face.
Okay. Do you want more taste or less taste?
LOL, ... I just want a light beer. Smiley face.
Well, when you learn to talk like a grown-up, come on back, and I'll get you a Miller Lite.
OMG.
Aw, sad face.
Man up and choose a light beer with more taste. Grab a triple hops brewed Miller Lite with that great Pilsner taste.
XOXO.
N-O-N-O.
College basketball presented by 5 Hour Energy returning during Judgment Week, presented by Battle Los Angeles. Keep an eye on the right knee of Thomas Robinson. This the recently surgically repaired knee, and it gets banged right there on the cut. Falling to the deck was C.J. Washington, and he took the knee of Robinson with him, so that's why he went down. And Fran Fraschilla, anything now, any misfortune that befalls Thomas Robinson, you just kind of shake your head and shrug your shoulders and say, what more can happen to this young man this year?
Oh, exactly right. Lost his mom and 2 of his grandparents in the last 2 months, and certainly rallied the Kansas Jayhawk team. In fact, they established a Lisa Robinson Scholarship Foundation for his mom, and there was an outpouring of goodwill certainly on the part not only of Jayhawk fans but college basketball fans around the country.
I asked Bill Self before the game how he's doing, just mentally, where is he at? And he said he's doing better than he ever could have dreamed, although the doctors, and I think he means the doctors that are dealing with the recovery of Robinson from a mental standpoint with his mom passing away, more than the physical standpoint of the surgery. He said the doctors and the therapists have said that there are still some times that he'll struggle. So Bill Self said, I'm still worried about him, but the fan base at KU has been amazing. He said they're just ridiculous how supportive they are. And he wanted to get the message to the fans that believe, Bill Self says, Thomas Robinson knows it. He feels that support.
And of course, you're talking about one of the great fan bases in college basketball, and Allen Fieldhouse certainly among one of the great venues. And one of the things that happens at this time of year is how there's an adversity quotient for teams. And how teams handle adversity, I think, has a lot to do with how far they go in the NCAA tournament. And certainly this Kansas team, although they've only got 2 losses, as you see Tyshawn Taylor, who's indefinitely suspended, they've overcome a lot of adversity. 7 different starting lineups.
Davis for 3. Gets fouled, and it's a chance for a 4-point play.
Watch the arc on this shot, Bob. Cade Davis shoots with as high an arc as anybody in college basketball and is very accurate. Sometimes the higher the arc, the less accurate you are because the ball travels further. But take a look. Catches, squares up. There's the foul. And that ball stays in the air a long time. Cade Davis has been the go-to guy for Jeff Capel this year. You talked about him playing with the Taylor Griffin, Blake Griffin, as you see Elijah Johnson down right now. He's had to evolve from a role player into a guy that this young team has to rely on.
Well, he's 9th best in the Big 12 and over 2.2 threes per game. Let's keep our eye on 15 Elijah Johnson, though, on the follow through as he comes down, catches Johnson on the side of the head. Elijah Johnson just got into the starting lineup in the last game, the win for Kansas over Oklahoma State on Monday after the suspension kicked in for Tyshawn Taylor. And Bill Self was talking about where Elijah Johnson was mentally and that he played so well on Monday night. It might have been that he was a player that kind of finally had a chance to play without looking over his shoulder, afraid to make a mistake, knowing there were options coming in off the bench. That he talked to him afterwards, and Johnson said, well, I knew I was staying in the game, so I could think more about distributing the ball, getting guys involved, and playing good defense, and not necessarily about being an impact scorer because I knew the ball was mine.
Well, what you like about Elijah Johnson, when Josh Selby became eligible in mid-December, people were speculating he might transfer. He said, nope, I'm a Jayhawk for life, and he's gotten his opportunity. And Certainly the name Wally Pipp has been thrown around the Kansas program because there's talk that if he does well, maybe Tyshawn Taylor doesn't get his job back.
Well, it's good to see Elijah Johnson up. Looks okay. And Tyshawn Taylor looks relieved as well. College basketball continues on ESPN tomorrow afternoon. Number 8 Purdue will head to Lansing to take on Michigan State. And it's a state team in need of a big win to improve their chances for a postseason run. Judgment Week, presented by the movie Battle Los Angeles on ESPN tomorrow at 1 Eastern. That game also available online at ESPN3.com and on your phone as Cade Davis finishes off the 4-point play and some pressure in the backcourt for Oklahoma.
Tom Izzo of Michigan State's got to be really thrilled the way Kalen Lucas has started to play back to the form of his sophomore year when he was the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Reed has it taken away by Davis. Quick trigger from the corner. No good. And not necessarily the shot I would think that Jeff Capel wanted Stephen Pledger to take. A deep 3 from the corner.
Pledger's one of those mercurial shooters. He can get red hot like he did up at Iowa State when he dropped in 38. And he can go cold as well.
You can see from those numbers as well, it has been one and done for Oklahoma. And a foul called underneath on C.J. Washington. We mentioned Michigan State, kind of the parallel with Kansas State. You looked at Kansas State earlier, but how about the Spartans on the bubble?
Well, the thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the strength of schedule. The RPI is still relatively solid. 6 wins against the top 50. I think as long as Michigan State finishes strong, that they certainly have every bit as good a chance to get back to the NCAA tournament. And you wouldn't have said that about 4 weeks ago when they were really in the midst of struggling. They still don't guard the way they probably need to, but do you really want to meet Michigan State in the first or second round of the NCAA tournament?
I was saying the same thing about Kansas State.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you're a team that really struggles all season to get on the right side of the bubble, and you get in the tournament as a 7 seed, an 8 seed, a 9 seed, somewhere in that range, and you look across the chart when the bracket comes out, and there's Kansas State or Michigan State waiting for you in the first round, as Thomas Robinson able to re-enter the game for Kansas. That is a tremendously talented opponent to have to face in the first round, and someone's going to have to play those two teams.
Oh, you're exactly right. And hey, give Frank Martin, the Kansas State coach, a lot of credit. There were people about a month ago that left that team for dead, questioning his coaching. The guy took Kansas State to the Elite 8 a year ago, and you talk about a team that's overcome adversity. They've won 6 of their last 7.
Davis tied up, foul call. So Cade Davis will shoot free throws. You know, it would be divine justice is if the committee got in the room and thought, all right, you know what, Michigan State and Kansas State, they're probably kind of in the middle of the bracket. How about they play each other in an 8-9 game?
Well, you know that that's not how it works.
Well, we get a lot of talk about the committee at this time of the year. These are the 5 teams most likely that they'll have to decide amongst for the 4-1 seeds.
Exactly. You see, I think some of the intangibles, of course, Duke's guards and they've got 2 stars, Duke, and Kyle Singler and Nolan Smith. Some people thought Kyle Singler might be National Player of the Year candidate. Watch out.
Mario Little hit. And a good foul by C.J. Washington. As Little released.
But you take a look at these intangibles. I think Kansas has the most depth. Of course, Ohio State, you talk about inside-out scoring with Sullinger and then those veterans on the perimeter. Texas, I think, the best defensive team. Pitt, nearly as deep as Kansas, and they are a tremendous rebounding team, and that culture of toughness that Jamie Dixon has cultivated has been evident all season long.
I think Ohio State's top 6 might be the best in the country. But with these 2 guys, if they ever met Ohio State in the Final Four, the national championship game, you wonder if they might not be able to get Sullinger in foul trouble. And if you got Sullinger in foul trouble, the depth that, say, a Kansas has or a Duke has, it's not there for Ohio State.
Well, you're right. But on the other hand, Marcus and Markieff Morris this year at times have not been as tough defensively inside. So you got to think Jared Sullinger would have an opportunity to play well as well. But you're right, Ohio State, you talk about the veteran leadership of guys like David Lighty and John Diebler.
Davis, rainbow jumper from the corner once again. And Mario Little with the rebound. In the corner. In and out for Selby. A great find by Robinson. Keeping it alive, though, is Robinson. And a timeout called by Kansas. So we'll step aside. Kansas on top 63-46. Come back to Norman with us in a moment.
Graham Whiteside in the studio. Arizona had a grip of the Pac-10 regular season title. It's been slipping away here. And in Pauley, Reeves Nelson underneath the basket finds that room, throws that down. Part of a 25-2 run as the Bruins are putting it on the Wildcats. As for Colorado and Texas, Alec Burks, 8 for 16, part of a 22-9 run. And the Buffs are making it interesting at home against the 5th-ranked Longhorns. Kentucky and Florida nip and tuck. Kentucky's 32-game home win streak on the line. Renardo Sidney, 17 of 27, 46 points over his last 2. He gets the balls next. Back to Norman.
All right, Bram, thanks very much. Morningstar misses inside. The rebound pulled down by Cameron Clark. Still comfortably in front, though. Kansas here at Oklahoma, uncomfortably in front now. Texas in Boulder taking on CU. So Kansas fans watching our game right now, I'm sure keeping an eye on the bottom line to see what happens with the Longhorns, because their team right now in front, but the Buffaloes have made a comeback.
Well, Alex Burks has 21 already with a lot of time to go. Young man from Grandview, Missouri, who's been one of the big surprises in the Big 12 the last 2 years. Wasn't recruited by Kansas, Kansas State, or Missouri. And now he's a pro prospect.
Travis Relaford back on for Kansas. And an offensive foul called on Mario Little. A moving screen. Well, the good news for KU, Thomas Robinson was able to return. Bad news for KU, though, a moment ago, Elijah Johnson was helped back to the locker room. This just while we were away. He went back to be looked at by the training staff. So,
well, he got hit hard on the head on that follow through by Kay Davis, and those head injuries now in really every sport, particularly basketball and football, are not taken lightly.
Jumper goes for Cameron Clark.
Well, Cameron Clark and Tyler Neal on the court right now for Jeff Capel, 2 freshmen who've had to log a lot of minutes this season.
Clark averages 34 minutes a game as a freshman in the Big 12.
Who was it? Al McGuire once said the best thing about freshmen is they become sophomores.
Fadeaway won't go for Little. He was looking for a foul. Newell tries to attack, does to the corner. Jumper on the way. In and out for Pledger.
Boy, Pledger's one of those guys, Bob, that ball is always on the rim. Sometimes they don't fall, but he is always near the rim.
Robinson connects.
Boy, Brady Morningstar sets that play up because of a great post feed that takes the ball away from the defender. He'll get an assist for that, but more importantly, it's just a really good basketball play.
Robinson jumper. That's an air ball. Kept alive, though. Caught on the baseline by Little. Selby off to Robinson. Lost it out of bounds. So with Kansas already up by 17, here comes the cavalry when we come back. As if one wasn't enough, Bill Self gets to put 2 of them in the game.
Graham Whiteside in the studio. Texas has won the last 6 meetings against Colorado. Had a 15-point halftime lead. Levi Knutson, lead gone, 62-61. Next possession for the Buffs. It is Knutson again, Doug.
Hell yeah, I played that altitude. It's like a blowtorch in your chest. Just ask Mizzou, ask K-State. They've fallen. Colorado wins this. They're on the bubble.
Back to Norman.
Yeah, see that, Bob? It's mostly cloudy for Colorado, but that high-pressure system going through Boulder as Tad Boyle's team, former Jayhawk, trying to get back on that bubble.
Bob Wischusen and Fran Fraschilla here in Norman, watching Kansas and Oklahoma. Kansas number 2. Although based on Joe Lunardi's latest projections, theoretically, they're number 5. He had them as the 5th team on the S-curve as being the top 2 seed. But that might change, at least for the time being, if Colorado holds on. I'm getting text messages on my phone during our game from Doug Gottlieb back in the studio, almost bucket for bucket during the Colorado comeback. And so KU fans watching their team right now put it on Oklahoma. But the balance of power might shift again in the Big 12 if Kansas holds on and Colorado pulls off the upset.
Well, and don't forget Big 12 tournament this year at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, which oftentimes has been a Kansas home game in the Big 12 tournament.
Takeaway, nicely done by Cameron Clark. Pledger attacks Morningstar, and a good foul by Morningstar. That'll put Pledger at the free throw line. Well, it's basically a 2-team race for the conference championship regular season between Texas and Kansas, but Texas A&M, Missouri, Kansas State, very interesting teams.
Absolutely. You know, Nebraska was 6-6 with the win over Texas last Saturday. They've dropped their last 2, but Colorado's still in the picture. And remember, they've got 4 top 50 wins. We showed you earlier. Beating Texas certainly would be another, addition to, at the moment, is not a great resume, but certainly an improving one. This young man, Stephen Pledger, played high school basketball with Andre Dawkins, who plays for Duke University, who played tonight against Virginia Tech as College game day is there. Both at Atlantic Shores in the Tidewater area of Virginia.
Fitzgerald back in for Neal for Oklahoma. And the Sooners try and pick up some full court pressure. Do they have a run in them to get back in the game? It is a deep hole they have dug themselves. Kansas, really for the most part, built this advantage in the first half with a 45-point first half.
Hard to pressure Kansas when you have 5 players out there can all handle the ball, including both Markeith and Marcus Morris.
Wide open jumper.
Yep.
Marcus Morris, no good. Fighting for the rebound inside is Cade Davis. Newell tries to skip one to the corner. Davis sets up Newell. Way off the mark. It falls to Fitzgerald. His putback is good.
Well, Andrew Fitzgerald gets everything done below the rim, but he's got great hands, good savvy, and he's technically sound in the post.
Selby dumps one into the lane. Loose on the deck. Fitzgerald wins the battle. And all of a sudden, the Oklahoma portion of the fans here at the Lloyd Noble Center sensing a comeback. Newell, wild fadeaway, but a foul call.
Calvin Newell, one of those late additions that Jeff Capel signed last spring, young man from Philadelphia. They had to totally revamp the roster when Tiny Gallen declared for the NBA. Tommy Mason Griffin was dismissed. Willie Warren declared for the NBA, now with the Los Angeles Clippers. So this is really, in a sense, an expansion team for Jeff Capel.
Selby was called for the foul.
There you see Romero Osby, the transfer from Mississippi State, who people around this program have told us may be their best player right now in practice every day.
The foul was the 8th on Kansas, so it was a 1-and-1 for Newell. Only 1 of 2, but the lead down to 13. Markeith Morris draws the foul. It's another foul called on C.J. Washington, and he's frustrated, doing all he can to battle with the Morris twins underneath, and that's his 3rd.
Well, he's, compared to the Morris twins, he's an undersized power forward. Mentioned that he's from Stringtown, Oklahoma, which is in the southeastern part of the state. It's got some historical significance, Bob, because the first murder by the Bonnie and Clyde gang took place in Stringtown, Oklahoma. I don't know if you knew that, but
it is amazing what I walk out of an arena with in my head after I spend about 2 hours with Fran Fraschilla. It's incredible.
Just a little known fact, as my Texas father-in-law used to tell me. Just a little known fact.
A pair at the line for Markieff Morris. The model of consistency this year, according to Bill Self. Except for a couple of games this year, Markieff Morris has been a 13-10 guy most nights for Kansas. Foul called against KU, and we'll step aside. When we come back, who knows what other nuggets about Oklahoma, Texas, maybe the life of Will Rogers, Fran will drop on us. I'm looking forward to it.
Graham Whiteside in the studio. 11 of the 12 Big 12 wins Texas has posted this year was by double digits. So up 15 at the half in Boulder, we assumed it was over. Assume nothing. Levi Knutson three-pointer, part of a 24-3 run, and the Buffs are up 8 now, under 5 to go at home. Now over on ESPN2, the nationwide race at Phoenix has started. Daytona champ Trevor Bayne started 7th. Danica 20th. Let's get you back to Norman.
College basketball presented by 5 Hour Energy here in Norman, Oklahoma. All part of Judgment Week. Brought to you by the movie Battle Los Angeles. What an unbelievable comeback for the CU Buffaloes against Texas at home. They have completely flipped that game around. And inching their way back into the game here in Norman, Cade Davis at the free throw line. Oklahoma still within striking distance against Kansas with over 7.5 minutes to go.
Now, Levi Knutson coming up big for Tad Boyle's Buffaloes, one of the most improved players in the Big 12. You got to talk about guys like Marcus Denman and Deontay Garrett of Iowa State. Knutson, guys that have paid their dues and really improved. Little 2-3 zone by Oklahoma. They've mixed their defenses all day long. Kansas, an experienced team, Bob, so whatever you throw at them, they usually have a reasonably good answer.
Selby trying to slip one to the corner to Reed. Intercepted by Washington. Davis leans in, draws the foul. Cade Davis goes back to the free throw line, and he can cut this lead down to 11.
That was a case of Josh Selby being a little too unselfish. That's probably what the Twins are telling him. He had a shot right here, one dribble into the lane, tries to make the extra pass and turns it over. And that gives Cade Davis a chance to go right to the rim, and he knows what to do at the ball, the senior from Elk City, Oklahoma.
Tyrell Reed called for the foul as well for Kansas. That's their 10th team foul here in the second half. So it's the double bonus the rest of the way for Oklahoma.
Remember the look Cade Davis had on his face this morning at the shoot-around when he was suffering from vertigo. Trainer Alex Brown told us that they've got a technique to eliminate some of that, and certainly it hasn't been much of an effect on him today. He's played well.
Reed for 3. Foul called underneath. That should go against Fitzgerald. So that will put Marcus Morris at the free throw line. 3rd foul on Fitzgerald.
Well, it's hard enough to get Kansas to miss a perimeter jump shot today, and then you got to deal with Markieff and Marcus Morris inside, and Oklahoma has been undersized all season long.
10 team fouls now in Oklahoma as well. 21 in the game now for Marcus Morris.
You know, these two young men, as you know, Bob, from Philadelphia, where they considered going to Villanova, they committed to Memphis, and they've had good careers here. You know, I talked to them earlier in the season at Midnight Madness, and if one of them leaves for the NBA, the other one's leaving also. And if one of them decides to stay for a senior year, I get the feeling they'll both stay because they are very, very close. Now, the NBA draft will eventually likely split them apart, but it's not uncommon that twins like these two guys are very, very close and almost inseparable.
Nice job by Newell to split the defense. Leaves it off for Fitzgerald. Blocked by Marcus Morris. But a foul called, and Marcus does whatever he can to swallow his tongue before objecting too much.
Yeah, nice penetration by Calvin Newell, and then Fitzgerald tries to get to the other side of the rim.
I remember doing the Jordan Brand Classic at the Garden 4 years ago when the Morris twins were leaving their senior year, I guess the 1 year they spent at the Apex Academy down in South Jersey. And they didn't even play in the full-on Jordan Brand Classic. They played in the locals versus locals game, which precedes it, which is a group of great New York City players and Long Island players against great New Jersey players and Connecticut players, kind of the city against the suburbs. They were on the suburban team. And it was these two kind of gangly guys with huge feet that hadn't grown into their bodies yet. And you saw them in person and said, these guys are going to Kansas? This is going to be Kansas's front line? Well, all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years later, you realize Bill Self had the right idea.
Well, he not only has the right idea, he's got the right guy coaching him, because Danny Manning, you take a look at Wayne Simeon and Cole Aldridge, guys like that. Danny Manning gets a lot of credit for developing these big guys that play at KU.
Markieff Morris, fadeaway. No good. The rebound tapped out to Morningstar. And it rolls to Selby, and a fresh shot clock for Kansas.
Well, that's an example right there of Andrew Fitzgerald needed to box out. Instead, he got boxed in on that missed shot. Nice pass.
Morningstar lets the flyby take place and lays it in.
Well, we talked about Bill Self saying Kansas is not a great passing team, but a great ball movement team. But he did tell us also their two best passers are Markieff and Marcus Morris.
Newell drives the baseline. Finds Fitzgerald. And his jumper is good. And a quick timeout called by Jeff Capel.
Well, you got to like the way the Sooners have battled, but it's been tough guarding the Morris twins inside. Take a look. Look where he's always looking middle. And he's waiting for cutters. Finally, Brady Morningstar gets himself free. But you catch that ball in the post, always look to the middle of the floor, because you can survey 95% of the court.
Well, it's the efficiency of the Morris twins that has been on full display today.
Well, absolutely right. They do a little bit of everything. They rebound, they score inside. They certainly have the ability to shoot the ball from the perimeter. They know what they're doing. Very efficient and technically sound. We'll show you Markieff first, Marcus second, but really it doesn't matter because they play so similarly and they're so multi-skilled. They're both capable of hurting a team both inside and out.
Talking about Markieff Morris, I asked Bill Self before the game if it ever backs up on Markieff a little bit that Marcus gets so much attention. Because really, when the numbers are compared, it seems like Marcus Morris, just because he scores more, some people look at it on the surface and say, well, maybe he's the better player. Not so.
I don't feel that way. No, in fact, if you talk to the Kansas people, they'll tell you that they feel they make the equal type contribution.
Markieff comes up short. And a foul call. If that's against Fitzgerald, it's number 4. And it is. So Andrew Fitzgerald picks up his 4th personal foul.
Well, when Jeff Capel watches this tape, he's going to like the effort of his team, particularly in the second half. But sometimes it's not about effort, it's about physical talent. And the Morrises have certainly had their way today.
(32-14) right now. Kansas outdoing Oklahoma on the glass. This will be the 23rd time out of 29 games this year that Kansas will out-rebound their opponent. Davis for 3. Hit once again. So Cade Davis will shoot 3 free throws. Morningstar called for the foul.
Cade Davis, as you mentioned, a guy that's been around here a long time. Solid role player with Taylor and Blake Griffin on that Elite 8 team. But the last 2 years, he's had to be Jeff Capel's go-to guy. And he certainly has not disappointed. The senior from Elk City, Oklahoma, has been very, very solid. He's had to play power forward this season, as Oklahoma has had to play small, but it's actually been very effective for him because he's a mismatch, especially away from the basket.
He's now 9 of 10 from the free throw line, all in the second half, as Clark goes to the bench. Pledger comes back on. And you mentioned that Davis has had to play out of position. He averages over 5 rebounds a game. 9 out of Oklahoma's last 13 games, he's been their leading rebounder. He's probably only realistically 6'4".
Yeah, and where he's got the advantage in terms of rebounding, he's usually flying in from the perimeter, and he's not as easily blocked out because of that.
Elijah Johnson back on the Kansas bench. Seven to shoot. A hand check foul called on Newell. As Reed drove to the basket, and Tyrell Reed will shoot 2 free throws when we come back. Bill Self's team trying to hang on here in Norman.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5 Hour Energy, the no-wait, no-hassle way to a great morning. And in part by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Light beer.
More taste or less taste?
I don't care.
Kind of how your girlfriend doesn't care that you're borrowing her pants?
Called skinny jeans. Kind of in right now.
They're kind of not.
Man up and choose a light beer with more taste. Grab a triple hops brewed Miller Lite with that great Pilsner taste.
Hey! Score still 21-32? Yeah, just like a jean size.
There once was a hungry road that wouldn't let drivers get very far. Then along came the Michelin Man who proved the right tire changes everything. Michelin Hydro Edge tires last up to 33,000 miles longer. Michelin, a better way forward.
Graham Whiteside in the studio. What a turnaround in Boulder. Texas was up 15 at the half, but the Buffs roared back. Here's Corey Higgins, this bucket and one. Texas has been outscored 48-25 in the second half. They trail by 8 with 2+ to go. Darius Miller has 22 as Kentucky looks to extend a 32-game home win streak, and UCLA used a 24-2 run to take a 13-point lead over Arizona. Back to Norman.
All right, Bram, thanks very much. So Kansas could very well end up benefiting by that big CU comeback, as Texas has fallen behind in the second half against Colorado.
One of the things that Tad Boyle told me earlier in the year is they want to establish a fast pace, particularly at home, because they feel they can take advantage of the altitude in Boulder, a mile high. And certainly Texas not being a deep team, that very well could have been the case today. Since that early lead, Kansas has almost, I wouldn't say put it in cruise control, but they've been very workmanlike and methodical.
Fitzgerald off the feed from Davis. Can't get the soft roll. Nice feed by Little. Found Markieff Morris for the throwdown. That might be the exclamation point for the Jayhawks.
And it's indicative of the way Kansas plays on offense, because they really play unselfishly. It's one of those teams I don't think anybody looks for the stat sheet in the locker room after the game. In fact, I know they don't, because Bill Self won't allow that.
Little with a touch foul up top on Clark. As we take a look at our three-dimensional performer of the game, brought to you by BMW.
Well, he might even be more multi-dimensional than that, because this guy has really benefited from the unselfish play of the Kansas Jayhawks. Marcus Morris scoring different ways, defending the rim. And again, taking advantage of a team that really loves to move the ball and look for the great shot, passing up the good shot for the great shot. Of course, it's always helpful, Bob, when you get a great shot and you have a great player taking a great shot.
Well, we're seeing the current front court stars for the Jayhawks and some old front court stars watching the game today.
Well, Cole Aldridge. Seen Nick Collison here today. There's Nick. Of course, Bill Self lost 2 lottery picks a year ago. And Cole Aldridge and Xavier Henry, of course, an All-American, and Sharon Collins. And when you ask him about 26-2, he said, I did not anticipate this. Overcome some injuries, the suspensions.
Now Bill Self wants a timeout. It's been a wild weather winter all around the country so far, and that said Fran Fraschilla at a meteorology school, and as a result, he is able to drive us through the Big 12 forecast.
Yeah, we're not on the 8s exactly right now, but we talked about mostly cloudy, but Colorado, if they can beat Texas, certainly they're not going to be a lock for the NCAA tournament. And I still have a lot of work to do, but that would be 5 wins over the RPI top 50, and they've got a quality group of guys.
Do we need a 3rd or a 4th category? Do we need to go from sunny to partly sunny to mostly cloudy and find a different level for Colorado?
No, I think right now we're going to leave them where they are. We still have some work to do. We'll adjust that weather forecast.
Still on the wrong side of the cold front?
Absolutely. But Tad Boyle's done a really good job. This is a team that lost to Harvard early in the year, and San Francisco, Colorado, got off to a great start, 3-0 in the Big 12. Stumbled, but have managed to continue to play well.
Marcus Morris on the move. Foul called on the floor. It'll still be a 2-shot foul, though. And I believe that is the final foul on Andrew Fitzgerald.
And that was all set up out of the timeout because they ran a little misdirection play. You talk about Marcus Morris's versatility, Bob. They throw it back to Morris at the top of the key, and he's able to beat Fitzgerald to the rim.
Young man that gave it all he had this afternoon fouls out with 16 points. And there's another big game tomorrow here at the Lloyd Noble Center. There's Sherry Cole, the women's coach here at Oklahoma. It's been a tough year so far on the men's side for Jeff Capel, but Coach Cole has a top 15 program. And Brittany Griner and Baylor coming in tomorrow afternoon. A game we'll have for you here on ESPN at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And we will see 2 of the best in the Big 12 and 2 of the best in the country.
Absolutely.
Square off perimeter against interior.
Well, Danielle Robinson, absolutely. She's been a mainstay for Sherry Cole over the course of her career. One of the outstanding scoring point guards in college basketball. And if you haven't seen Brittany Griner, she's only a sophomore, but has already made her presence felt on the national scene. She's got a chance to be one of the great players in the history of college basketball.
And that game tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern. It's a good thing for the play-by-play guys. He took a look at the prompter there.
I had a chance to cover the NCAA tournament last year here in Norman, the first 2 rounds, and Sherry Cole's team was propelled from Norman up to St. Louis and then to the Final Four.
Just hovering under the surface now here at Lloyd Noble. There's a rock chalk Jayhawk beginning as Kansas is pulled away with 1:50 to go.
Of course, we're only a couple hours from the Kansas border, and a lot of fans in the central part of the state up in Wichita, which is 4 hours away, can't get tickets to Allen Fieldhouse.
Newell spins around Marcus Morris and draws the foul. Tyrell Reed called for the personal. Kansas from the floor today, 25 of 43. And those numbers seem impressive, but in context, not that out of character for the team that's #1 in America in field goal percentage. They shoot 52% on average per game. 20 of their 28 games coming into today, they had shot 50% or better from the field. So if they throw one at you that's 56, 57%, it's not a career day.
Nope, absolutely. Maybe the most efficient offensive team of any of those teams that we consider the elite 5 or 6. And certainly Ohio State would have something to say about that, the way they shoot the ball and also play off Jared Sullinger inside. Of course, Duke has that great combination of Singler and Nolan Smith. Don't forget, Kansas has to go to Missouri next Saturday, which is never an easy place in an incredible rivalry.
Little floater by Selby won't go. Markieff Morris draws the foul. Well, that's a game that Missouri will need. Another resume builder for them. They're not worried about making the tournament or missing it. Obviously, Missouri is most likely in the field of 68, barring a complete collapse. But they lost a game today against Kansas State that might have hurt their seeding a little bit. You beat Kansas, that bumps you right back up well above where you were before.
Well, you're right. You're right. And, of course, they've only got one road win, Missouri, in the Big 12. And watching that game today, as you did from our hotel rooms, I thought that they did not handle physical play inside. Curtis Kelly, Jordan Henriquez-Roberts really played well, and Frank Martin again has done a terrific job of getting that team to bounce back from what looked like could be an ugly season. I think right now Kansas State is playing its best basketball of the year and certainly on its way to another NCAA tournament bid.
Goaltending called inside. Under a minute to go in Colorado. And the Buffs up by 5, shooting free throws. So it looks like Colorado is going to hold on to upset Texas. The Longhorns unable to do what Kansas did, which was beat an inferior opponent on the road, do your business away from home, and all of a sudden the top of the Big 12 looks a little different again.
Yep, and Texas has never won an outright regular season title, and right now they're in danger of sharing it with Kansas. And of course they've got Kansas State Monday night on Big Monday.
Newell with a cheap one. That'll put Selby at the free throw line. A lot of free throws in this game in the second half. 48 combined free throws between the two teams in the second half. Newell spins one off the glass and gets it to go. A circus shot by Newell with under 5 seconds remaining. Still in all, Kansas very efficient on the road here in Norman. The Jayhawks win it 82-70. Next up, more college basketball. Mississippi State and Tennessee. For Fran Fraschilla, I'm Bob Wischusen. Our entire crew says so long from Norman, Oklahoma. Let's go back to Bram Weinstein.